but you definitely want to know all your numbers going in, your rent rolls, what your renovations are going to cost, where your targets are for rents after all the ARV. You want to get an idea for how the property is performing physically, where are the areas that need love, what needs help, what needs rehab, what needs repair, and get a plan so day one, when the ink dries on that closing statement, you've got your teams ready to go. That is not the time for you to be finding a contractor or a plumber or an electrician. You want to have everything all sorted out so on that closing date, that same day, you can hand keys to these vendors and they can go in and get started. What's up, all my real estate peeps? This is Brian Lucier with another episode of the Why Not Real Estate podcast, Golden Nugget. And in this one, we're going to unpack due diligence on a large multifamily property. Now, we have market due diligence, we have financial due diligence, and we have physical due diligence. Now, the market due diligence we've covered in another podcast under emerging markets. So to figure that one out, I'll have you go and check that one out, where I really drill down in depth on how to pick a good market and what is an emerging market and what should you be looking for in your deals. So now in this one, we're going to look at financial due diligence and we're going to look at physical due diligence and some of the things that you should be looking out for when you're doing your multifamily deals. Mostly all deals start with the offering package. So you're going to get the pro forma. It's going to say what the rent rolls are, and you're going to get an idea basically of what the deal complexion looks like. Now, mind you, this is a pro forma, so it may not be the exact. This is in a perfect world if everything was up to market rents. Sometimes an owner will market the property that way, but that does not reflect the actual rents. So once you engage the broker and you get the pro forma, you're going to have to start asking for documents that you can do your financial diligence. You're going to need your rent roll. You would ask for a trailing 12, which would be the last 12 months of income expenses, like a balance sheet, profit and loss sheet. You want to get a trailing 6 and a trailing 3. The reason you want the trailing 6 and the trailing 3 is it's going to give you a better idea of short-term what has happened for the income and expenses. The long 12-year or 12-month trailing 12 is going to give you the complexion of what it looked like for the last year. Sometimes when a property owner starts to package the property to sell, within 3 to 6 months, they may start reducing expenses, may start raising rents. So you need to look at all these variables and kind of get a better idea what has changed in that property, looking at a trailing 12, a trailing 6, and a trailing 3. That's the beginning of your financial due diligence. The next part of your financial due diligence is you are going to be requesting from the seller bank statements so you can see cash coming in, cash going out. It says you can always kind of tell what someone is, where their heart is, where their interest is by checking the checks that they write. So you want to do that about this property. You want to look at the bank statements. You are going to be pulling an appraisal on this property as well. So the pro forma may have it listed at one number, the appraisal may come in at another number, and that's going to help you determine where you might be on your offer. Again, we talk about cap rates in another video, so I'll have you go look at that one to get a breakdown on cap rates. The other thing you're going to be looking at, besides the appraisal and the bank statements, you want to see the terms on the debt sheet for the current property. Is this going to be an assumable mortgage? Is it something you can come in and take over with the current bank? Or is there a non-assumable clause? If there is an assumable clause, is there a penalty to do all this? So you can look at the current mortgage on that deal and see if it's something you may be able to take over, and what would it cost you to take it over if there's any penalties or fees, deviance fees associated with that mortgage. You want to look at that as well. It kind of gives you a better idea how you might be able to finance the property. On the expense side of the finances, you want to be looking at the insurance. What's it going to cost to insure this property? Now, the insurance may be based off the last sales price, and your taxes may be based off the last sales price. So you're going to have to contact City Hall, and it gets a little tricky here depending on where you're buying that property. Some municipalities, if they get wind that the property is for sale, may target that property for a tax increase. Like I know in Texas, they'll do that because it's, you just have to be careful where you're buying the property that you don't trigger the taxes going up. For insurance, you also want to look at this as well. If you're buying in a flood zone or somewhere where hurricanes hit a lot, you'll need to know what's going to impact you if you purchase this property. Also, you're going to have to check. Maybe you have an insurance broker who can look up the property and see if there have been any recent claims. These could actually affect your ability to get affordable insurance on that property as well. One of the other important things you need to look at doing your financial due diligence, you have to pull some market reports and comps. Now, usually in the pro forma, in the property package, they'll give you comps for comparable properties. This is great, but you still want to dig a little bit deeper here. Some people, I'm not saying everyone would do this, but some people may only put in favorable comps for their market or for their property. So you want to dig a little deeper, maybe work with your broker, see if you can pull your own comps. And you're going to be looking also here for comparable units. If you're buying a value add type of property, your rents may be at one baseline. And then what is that property going to look like when you do the ARV and you do your renovations and you bring up the rents? It's going to affect the value of that property as well. So you have to look at where you are, your baseline for rents on your current situation on that. Again, this may not match performance, and again, they may have pulled favorable comps in that performance, so you kind of have to look at that as well. And then do your own market study to pull your own comps and do your own comparables. It's better that you're informed, especially if this is going to be a huge purchase. Now you want to be looking at the rent rolls and looking at the financial reports of what is coming in for rent. What's your loss to lease? Loss to lease is a term, if your rents could be here and you're only collecting here, that middle margin in the middle is called your loss to lease. So that kind of tells you the meat on the bone. If you market or if you increase the operations of the property, potentially what you could add value to that property. Now that you've established your loss to lease and got an idea where your rents could be or where they should be, you want to start looking at your vacancy reports. How many vacant units are you carrying? Why are they vacant? When you do your physical inspection, we'll talk about that in a moment, you need to tour every single unit. Not that everyone would do this, but some property owners may cannibalize one unit to get all the other ones looking good. And there may be 2, 3, 4 units that are totally stripped down bare with no appliances or stuff like that. I'm not saying this to scare you, I'm saying this to prepare you. So the point of this is to check your vacancies, your physical vacancies, and you also want to check who's not paying rent. I mean, somebody might be living there, but if they're not paying rent, it's just as good as being vacant. So now we're going to start digging in a little bit deeper, and we're going to transition over into the physical due diligence. Now that we're into the physical due diligence stage, there are several serial moving parts going on at the same time. You and your team are going to be doing what you can do for physical due diligence. Also, now that you have a banker engaged, they're going to want to come in. They're going to do their environmental inspections to make sure if it's a gasoline leak or if it's next to some other environmentally unstable place, they want to make sure that the property is safe and you can put a loan on it. You need to, with your team, inspect every single unit. You need to walk every single unit. Most of these may be very similar. Maybe you need to upgrade cabinets. Maybe you need to upgrade flooring or carpets. There might be that one thing that you see over and over again. Make note of that. but you definitely want to keep an eye out for any cannibalized units. If all the utilities have been pulled out, you want to be looking at the infrastructure when you do your inspection. If you can, bring a general contractor with you because he may see things that you're not going to see. Definitely, if you can do that, you want to be checking all the infrastructure. If there's boiler systems for heating, you want to check that. If it's HVACs for AC, you want to be checking that. You want to check the lifespan. You want to kind of get an idea. I call it a sinking fund. If it's a roof and it's going to take 10 years before you have to pay for it again, what's your plan for reserves? How old is the roof? When are you going to have to pull the trigger on that? And for every essential system in that property, you need to kind of figure out this fund and what you're going to have for reserves. And this all comes from your on-site inspection. Again, you want to bring a property inspector with you, a building inspector, not like municipality, but a property inspector, and a contractor if you can, because as you're walking through the property, they might make line items and be able to get you an estimate on what it's going to take. If you're doing a value add, you can budget this into your number to see how you're going to get to your after repair market rents. At this point in your physical due diligence, you've got your lender. They're doing everything they can do on their due diligence. They're pulling market reports, the appraisals, all that stuff to get that part of what they need to have done. You've already had your team do your inspection. You've gone through every unit, and now you have a checklist that you can work with your builder or contractor, plumbers or electricians, whatever your rehab is going to be, and start to wrap your head around what that part of your rehab is going to be. Now, your next step, or actually you could do this at any time in the process, you want to visit City Hall. You want to visit the building department, the Board of Health, the police department, the fire department, the zoning commission. You want to make sure that this property is feasible for the use that you're going to use it for in the zoning. The police department, something I've done in the past is I'll call the police department and say, I'm moving to that property with a couple of children. You know, what does it look like? Do you get a lot of calls there? You can make these calls, and they may not give you an exact answer, but they'll give you some guidance whether or not they do have a lot of calls to this property. The Board of Health, you want to know if there's any outstanding violations, what they are, what kind they are. You can actually physically go into the municipality, and a lot of them will be willing to help you. They'll pull the folder on that property and let you go through the history of that property, any reports that you have. You can do the same thing with the building department. This is important, right? You want to make sure that when you view this property, if there's new kitchens or rehabs or renovations, were permits pulled? Is the work done legally? Was it done by a licensed and insured contractor? Can you look up that contractor? This is the Easter egg hunt that you have to do in your due diligence. You have to look for every stone and turn it over and find out what's under there. Why permits are so important. If you purchase this property and there was work done without a permit, there is no recourse on the seller. You own it now, warts and all. So if there's some shoddy workmanship, which results in a flood or a fire, insurance companies are smart. The first thing they're going to go do is go to City Hall and see if permits were pulled. If it was an electrical fire, they want to know who to pin the tail on that donkey. And if this work was done without a permit, there is no electrician that's licensed and insured that's going to pick up the bill. That's going to be solely on your plate. So you absolutely need to do a verify spot check. If there were new work done, were there permits pulled, and are the permits closed? I've seen this happen so many times where owners have had to go back in history, in time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years trying to close a permit, and it is nothing short of a nightmare. So that's the next point that you have to look for in your physical due diligence. The next thing you want to do is actually interview the property manager who's currently managing that property. Something you do want to ask them for is the last year of maintenance records. You want to get a feel for what type of maintenance reoccurs at the property. Are there mold or mildew issues? Are there flooding issues? Are there plumbing issues? You want to get a good grip on what the maintenance here is on this property. Also, at the same time you're doing that, you want to take stock on the property management office, which may be right on location. Here you want to start getting lists of serial numbers for equipment, machines, what's owned at the property. Is there plow equipment? Is there maintenance equipment? Tools, shovels, computers, printers, fax machines, whatever might possibly be there. You want to start documenting what all these serial numbers are. I mean, I've heard of this happen. I've never seen it happen with any of our properties or our clients, but you get all this information, and then the day of the sale, you show up, computers are missing, tools are missing, supplies are missing. You want to get an inventory on what's in stock at this property as well. Are there landscaping tools or supplies, mulch, boards, millwork, tile work, whatever. There could be flooring from previous projects. You want to take stock of what you already have at this property, and you want to document everything. So on turnkey, when the keys come over to you, you want to verify and check that everything was exactly in the same place, and exactly same type of equipment that you noted in your due diligence period. This next tip pigtails on the municipalities when you're downtown, checking out the building department, the board of health, the fire, police, zoning. You also want to get surveys, and a bank may do this anyways, but you want to take a look at the actual land, the plot of the land. You're looking for drawings, surveys, so you can see if there's potential and frontage. Can you add to this? Can you add garage? Can you add a dog park? Are there other things you could plan for in your value add that the drawings might be able to show you? You want to take a look at this as well, and keep this to your vest. Don't actually tell them that you may be adding this value, because they may want to renegotiate the price if they see that there's something they missed that they could charge you for. At the same time that you're looking at the maintenance records, you want to review any service contracts that might be at the property. Do they have a pool service contract? Is there internet service provider or cable? What does your landscaping contract look like? If you're already buying in that market, in that neighborhood, you might be able to leverage your other service contracts like snow removal or landscaping or something like that, and bulk it up and maybe get a cheaper rate than what the owner is currently paying at this property. Always be looking for ways where you can save a little bit here and there without diminishing the quality of service. These small little increments can have a trajectory over time that will give you a much better margin for your returns. So check out your service contracts. The title report, as the bank is actually pulling the appraisal and all this other stuff, you'll have an attorney going down into title to make sure it's free and clear. You're definitely going to want to get title insurance, so make sure that that's a no-brainer. But work with your attorney on the title report, and just if there's any clouds on title, you absolutely need to get those resolved. And sometimes you may want to push this back on the seller, because if they really want to sell the property to you, it would be in their best interest to clear title before the purchase date. The next piece of the puzzle in your physical due diligence are your utilities. Gas, oil, electric, water. You want to see these over a year, and you can call the water company, you can call the electric company, the gas company, whatever utility is servicing this property, and you're not asking for account numbers or anything crazy, but you can absolutely ask for the meter usage. So that'll give you an idea throughout the year what your standard wintertime in the Northeast, you'll pay more for heating. Summertime down in the South, you'll pay more for AC and coolers. So you want to track all this. You absolutely want to keep an eye on your water bills. Here's where there could be some great potential savings. In your rehab, if it's going to be a value add, maybe you go through the entire thing, the whole property, and add water efficiency fixtures and toilets. That will have a cost up front, but now you've got new appliances that you're not going to have to do maintenance on, and you'll start savings in your municipalities and your utility bills right away. So definitely check out your electric and your water bills for potential savings in part of your physical due diligence. So wrapping up the physical due diligence, the last thing you kind of want to take a look at are there warranties on the property. These could be appliances, it could be lawn service, it could be roofs. If there was work done, you want to get copies of all these and have a folder set aside, because after the closing, if you have to call these contractors or call in any of these warranties, you're going to need their information handy and ready for you to get your hands on. So that is a pretty good list to get started on your financial and physical due diligence. There may be some other things that I've missed, but you definitely want to know all your numbers going in, your rent rolls, what your renovations are going to cost, where your targets are for rents after all the ARV. You want to get an idea for how the property is performing physically, where are the areas that need love, what needs help, what needs rehab, what needs repair, and get a plan so day one, when the ink dries on that closing statement, you've got your teams ready to go. That is not the time for you to be finding a contractor or a plumber or an electrician. You want to have everything all sorted out so on that closing date, that same day, you can hand keys to these vendors and they can go in and get started. So hopefully this will give you what you need to get a pretty good idea on due diligence. Again, you need market due diligence, financial due diligence, and physical due diligence. This is Brian Lucier from the Why Not Real Estate Podcast on another golden nugget, hoping that this gets you where you need to be. We'll see you on the next one.